it will break your unconscious behavior. So how can we set up our tambulam? We can keep 2 betel leaf, 1 banana, 1 betel nut, and 1 coin, and offer that to Devi every time you have darshan. Keep it in front of your screen, and you will just see how your relationship with Devi Parashakti grows, how your relationship with Swami grows, and how it deepens your feeling connection with just this one small gesture. So now with this, we'll be entering into the next segment and understanding some of the revelations made by Devi Parashakti for us at this time. As, as so many of us have been struggling and suffering during this pandemic, during this Kalaya, Devi Parashakti has been continuously manifesting to guide us and bless us, to heal us at this time. So let us look at some of the guidances, revelations that Devi Parashakti has made for us at this time. Now let us understand what Devi Parashakti has revealed about the sacred secrets of Hindu birth. Let us first watch the revelation.
அளிக்கின்றேன், நன்றாய் கேட்டுக்கொள். உன் கேள்விக்கு உன்மூலமாய் உலகெங்கும் இருக்கும் இந்துக்கள் எல்லோர்க்கும் அளிக்கின்றேன் உத்திரம். கேட்டு வாழ்ந்தால் உங்கள் வாழ்க்கை பத்திரம். நன்றாய் கேளுங்கள். பிறப்பின் ரகசியத்தை பிறப்பிலா பெருமை உடைய பரமேஸ்வரி சொல்லுகின்றேன் கேளுங்கள். அண்டஜம், யோனிஜம், ஜலஜம், பீஜம் எனும் 4 விதமான பிறவிகளில் 84,000 யோனிகளில் பிறக்கும் பிறப்புகளிலேயே பெருமை வாய்ந்ததும் உத்தமமானதும் மனித பிறவி. அந்த மனித பிறவியிலும் பலமுண்டு. அரசியல், பொருளாதாரம், சுகபோகம், தர்மம், அர்த்தம், காமம் எனும் ஆசைகள், துக்கங்கள், அச்சங்கள் அனைத்திலும் அழன்று உழன்று இனி வேண்டாம் இப்பிறவி, வேண்டுவது மோட்சமே என்று முடிவெடுத்தோர்க்கு மட்டுமே ஹிந்து மத யோனிஜம், ஹிந்து பெற்றோர்க்கு பிறந்திடும் சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம யோனிஜம். மனித பிறவி உத்தமம், சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம மனித பிறவி உத்தமோத்தமம். இந்த உத்தமோத்தம பிறவி எடுத்த எல்லோருக்கும் ஜீவன் முக்த விஞ்ஞானத்தையும் சனாதன தர்மத்தையும் காக்கின்ற கடமையும் உண்டு. அதனால் வருகின்ற நன்மையெல்லாம் அனுபவிக்கும் உரிமையும் உண்டு. இந்த கடமையை செய்வோம் என்று சத்தியம் செய்ததனால்தான் அந்த உரிமை அளிக்கப்பட்டது. பூமிக்கு வந்தபின் மனம் மயங்கி மதிமயங்கி சனாதன தர்மம் காக்க மறந்ததனால் மாயை அவர்கள் உயிரை பறிக்கின்றாள். நன்றாய் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உயிரை கொடுத்தாலும் தர்மத்தை காப்போம் என்று உறுதி எடுத்தவர்க்கே சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம யோனிஜம் அளிக்கின்றேன் யான். உடல் பெற்ற பிறகு ஊழிப் பெருவலியால் ஆசை அச்சங்களை உதறவிடாது, உதறியும் விடாது சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்மம் காக்க மறந்தோரை உயிர் வாழத் தகுதியில்லாதவர் பட்டியலில் உடனடியாய் மாயை சேர்க்கின்றாள். அதனால் ராட்சசர்களும் அசுரர்களும் தானாகவே இவர்கள் உயிரை எடுக்கின்றார். நன்றாய் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உயிரை கொடுத்தாலும் தர்மம் காப்போம் என்று நிற்பவர்க்கு நிலைத்திடும் வீரஸ்வர்க்கமும் கைலாச பதவியும். எக்காரணம் கொண்டும் தர்மம் காக்க மறந்த உத்தமோத்தம ஜனனமான சனாதன ஹிந்து ஜனனம் பெற்ற மக்களுக்கு இல்லை வேறு கதி. சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம மனித ஜனனம் உத்தமோத்தம மனித ஜனனம். உங்கள் உரிமை உலகில் அதிகம், உங்களுக்கு கடமையும் உலகில் பெரிது. தர்மம் காத்தாலே கடமை, தர்மம் காக்காதார்க்கு உயிர் வாழும் உரிமை இல்லை. நன்றாய் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உத்தமோத்தம பிறவியான சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்ம பிறவி எடுத்த எல்லோரும் புரிந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். உங்கள் வாழ்வின் முதற்கடமை தர்மம் காத்தல். தர்மம் காக்க தர்மம் உங்களை காக்கும். சனாதன ஹிந்து தர்மம் காக்க மறந்திட்டால் வாழும் உரிமையை நீங்கள் இழந்து விடுகின்றீர்கள். அதற்கு மேல் வாழ்ந்தென்ன அழிந்தென்ன? பூமிக்கு பாரம் குறையட்டும் என்று அசுரர்களும் ராட்சதர்களும் உங்களை உண்டு தீர்க்கின்றார்கள். அதையும் மாயை கண்டு சும்மாவிருப்பாள். பிரபஞ்ச ரகசியத்தை, பிறவியின் ரகசியத்தை உலகிற்கெல்லாம் உத்தரமாய்ச் சொல்லிவிட்டேன். புரிந்து வாழ்வில் நடந்து உயிரை பத்திரமாய் பார்த்துக் கொள்ளுங்கள். அன்னை சொல்லும் அருள் சத்தியம் இது. ஓம் ஓம் ஓம்.
Let us look at Devi Parashakti's revelations mapped into English. understand what Devi has revealed, mapped into English. Listen, Andajam, Yonijam, Jalajam, Yijam, like this in 4 types of birth, in 84 lakh yonis. In all these births, the most greatest birth of them all is a human birth. Even in that human birth, being born and toiled many times, after getting burnt and toiled in politics, in finance, in luxuries, in dharma, artha, kama. And those who decide of not wanting this birth, wanting only moksha, only those will have the Hindu dharma yonijam. That's not the Hindu dharma yonijam of being born to Hindu parents. Human birth is Uttamam, the best, and Sanatana Hindu Dharma human birth is Uttamottamam, the best of the best. Everyone who took this Uttamottama birth has the responsibility of protecting the science of living enlightenment and Sanatana Dharma. And also they have the right of experiencing its benefits. This right was given to them because of their commitment, given by them to do this responsibility. After coming to Bhuloka, by getting mentally deluded and forgetting the Dharma, protecting Sanatana Dharma, Maya, she is taking away all of their souls. Understand carefully. I am giving the Sanatana Hindu Dharma Yonijam only for those who gave the commitment of protecting Sanatana Dharma, even by giving their life. Sorry for the technical glitch. We'll be right back with those slides. Sanatana Hindu Dharma, human birth is Uttamottama, human birth. Your rights in this world are immense. Also, your responsibility in this world is large. Those who do not protect Dharma, they do not have the right to live. Understand properly. All those who took the Uttamottama birth, which is Sanatana Hindu birth, all of you understand. The first responsibility of your life is protecting Dharma. If you protect Dharma, Dharma will protect you. If you forget to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma, you lose the right of living. After that, what bothers, whether you live or get destroyed, asuras and rakshasas will eat you so that the burden on earth is reduced. Seeing that, Maya, she will keep quiet. So as Devi revealed, it is the responsibility of Hindus to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma. That is why we were given this birth, Sanatana Hindu birth. And it is our responsibility to protect it, and even with giving our life. So how can we protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma? It is only through a Hindu nation, building a Hindu nation, that we can protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma. Hinduism represents yet the world's most ancient yet progressive indigenous spiritual tradition. It is an open framework model of civilization that stands for peace, vegetarianism, nonviolence, yoga, worship of nature, temple-based living, and manifesting spiritual powers and the inherent divinity of every human being, every being. And the Hindu nations were ecosystems where more and more enlightened beings could be produced, so that enlightened civilization could be kept alive and its great gifts shared with the world. sorry for the technical glitch. So that Hinduism represents the world's most ancient yet progressive indigenous spiritual tradition. It is an open framework model of civilization that stands for global peace, vegetarianism, non-violence, yoga, worship of nature, temple-based living, manifesting spiritual powers, and the inherent divinity of every being. Yes. So let us now look at some of the references of our great illuminations from our Hindu scripture. The Ramaraja, which was the nation ruled by Bhagavan Rama, was described in the Valmiki Ramayana. There were no widows to lament, nor there were any danger from wild animals, nor any fear born of diseases. The world was bereft of thieves and robberies. No one felt worthless, nor did old people perform obsequies concerning youngsters. Every creature felt pleased. Everyone was intent on virtue, turning their eyes towards Rama alone. Creatures did not kill one another. People survived for thousands of years with thousands of their progeny, all free of illness and grief. The trees there were bearing flowers and fruits regularly, without any injury by pests and insects. The clouds were raining in time, and the wind was delightful to the touch. Every caste was performing their own duties, satisfied with their own work and bereft of any greed. People were intent on virtue and lived without telling lies. All the people were endowed with excellent characteristics. All were engaged in virtue. And the Hastinapur kingdom, ruled by Yudhishthira, was described in the Srimad Mahabharata. Devas granted rain to fulfill all wants. The world became free of all diseases. There was no hunger or thirst anywhere. There was no mental suffering. Those without livelihood were given livelihood. There was abundance all around. There was no worldly worries left for anyone, and there was no cause for fear either. Happiness on earth was in fact even greater than in the heavens. And the Hindu nations contributed so much to the world in every single field: enlightenment, health, medicine, art, science, aviation, dance and music, clothes and jewelry, social systems, judicial systems, political systems, legal systems, technology. Every single field, Hinduism and Hindu nations gave a huge breakthrough to. So let us now understand how our Hindu nations were destroyed. So the first phase of the destruction of the Hindu civilization came with the Islamic invasions between 800 and 1700 AD. This was the physical destruction of the Hindu civilization. And Will Durant has described that the Mohammedan conquest of India is probably the bloodiest story in history. The Islamic historians and scholars have recorded with great glee and pride the slaughters of Hindus, the forced conversions, the abduction of Hindu women, and the Islamic law prescribed for Hindus, conveyed by Khilji, is also described here. It states, Hindus are like mud. If silver is demanded from them, they must with greatest humility offer gold. If a Mohammedan desires to spit into a Hindu's mouth, the Hindu should open it wide for that purpose. God created Hindus to be slaves for the Mohammedans. The Prophet hath ordained that if Hindus do not accept yeah, sorry for the technical glitch. So we'll be understanding in this segment about the three-phase destruction of the Hindu civilization. As we all know, over the course of 1,000 years, the Hindu civilization has been completely destroyed, such that where we had 56 nations, 56 deshas, we have none now other than Kailasa. And even most recently, Nepal, in the past 2 decades, has also become a so-called secular nation. Let us understand how our Hindu nations were destroyed over the course of 1,000 years with various invasions and destruction of the Hindu civilization. So as we stated, the first phase was the Islamic invasion. This was the physical destruction of the Hindu civilization. And in Khilji, the Islamic law prescribes for Hindus, conveyed by Khilji, was described. So the Islamic law prescribed by the Islamic invasion. So the Islamic law prescribed for Hindus the Islamic invasion. So the Islamic law prescribed for Hindus as conveyed by Khilji describes that the Prophet hath ordained that if the Hindus do not accept Islam, they should be imprisoned, tortured, and finally put to death, and their property confiscated. To keep Hindus in abasement is especially a religious duty because they are the most inveterate enemies of the Prophet. You can see in these descriptions how barbaric, how savage the Islamic invasions were upon India. It was physically brutal and completely destroyed physically the Hindu civilization. And during the Islamic invasions, over 200 million Hindus were slaughtered by the Islamic invaders. Over 100,000 temples were destroyed, and over 1 million deities and sculptures were destroyed. And it is described that the conquering armies burnt villages, devastated the land, plundered people's wealth, took Brahmins and children and women of all classes captive, flagged them with thongs of raw hide, carried a moving prison with them, and converted prisoners into obsequious Turks. So over the course of the Islamic invasion, millions and millions of Hindus were slaughtered at the brutal hands of the invaders. The next phase of the destruction of the Hindu civilization was the British occupation. This was not as physically brutal, but it destroyed the very backbone of India, what Hindus were built on, the Gurukul system. And this was between 1700 and 1947 AD. This was the economic and psychological destruction of the Hindu civilization. So despite the British occupation not being as physically brutal, it caused so much of the British exploited the Hindus and completely annihilated the economy and the psychology of Hindus. Wildebrand has described that I have seen a great people starving to death before my eyes, and I am convinced that this exhaustion and starvation are due not, as their beneficiaries claim, to overpopulation and superstition, but to the most sordid and criminal exploitation of one nation by another in all recorded history. So you can see in this photo one of the most brutal famines in history, the Bengal famine, which was an artificial famine imposed by the British. And during the British occupation, the British Empire used all possible means to destroy the Hindu civil and cultural institutions in order to delegitimize and demoralize the indigenous people of India so that they would become slaves in their own homeland. This included discriminatory laws to instill feelings of racial inferiority, engineering artificial famines to starve natives into submission, annexing the Hindu kingdom to undermine native rule, mistranslating the Hindu scriptures to instill anti-Hindu narratives, and destroying the indigenous Gurukul education system, which was, again, the backbone of India, and destroying the local industries and forcing importation of British goods, and finally banning Indians from owning or producing their own firearms. And over the course of the British occupation, the British looted $45 trillion from India, and over 45 million Hindus were put to death due to artificial famine and imposed poverty, and over 680 native kingdoms were usurped by the British Raj. And Sashi Tharoor of the Indian Parliament has described the British came to one of the richest countries of the world. Over 200 years of exploitation, looting, and destruction have reduced it to a poster child of third world poverty. And the third phase of the destruction of the Hindu civilization was the secularization of India. This happened after the British left India and India became an independent nation, and this was between 1947 and current day. This has been ruled by brown faces, British attitudes and policies towards Hindus. And Nehru, who is the first Prime Minister of India, has described what a disgusting, savage people we are. Politics, progress, socialism, communism, science, where are they before this black religious savagery? India can never be a Hindu republic. And B.R. Ambedkar, the first law minister and principal architect of the Indian Constitution, has described that if Hindu Raj does become a fact, it will no doubt be the greatest calamity for this country. No matter what the Hindus say, Hinduism is a menace to liberty, equality, and fraternity. It is incompatible with democracy. Hindu Raj must be prevented at any cost. So you can see both of these are two of the most important leaders in the free nation, the free India, and yet they had clearly a very anti-Hindu agenda, despite it being a secular nation. And you can see that the ecosystem environment after the invasions and of course the secularization of India has become completely anti-Hindu. The modern Indian legal system, academia, and media all systematically undermine, suppress, and delegitimize Hindu institutions and culture. This includes through the Indian Constitution establishing government control over taxation over Hindu temples, schools, and other institutions, while other religions are free from this interference. And Articles 26 through 30 of the Indian Constitution discriminates against Hindus by giving special rights and benefits to non-Hindus. This includes government benefits and scholarship. And Hindu kingdoms and self-governance has been completely abolished. Anti-superstition laws have been passed to criminalize Hindu practices, and mainstream Indian academia describes Hindus as sexist. Mainstream Indian academia have described Hindus as sexist, racist, backwards, and oppressors, and the media narratives also portray the same in Bollywood and TV. And media narratives have been used to stereotype and demoralize Hindus. The Bollywood and other mainstream media outlets consistently portray Hindu gods and gurus as cartoonish, dishonest, corrupt sex fiends in a manner that is similar to imperial propaganda. The media narratives are used to shape human consciousness and further their political agenda. The racist British colonial stereotypes portraying Hindus as superstitious, backwards, dishonest, and corrupt are perpetuated by their brown British successors in modern day India, completely unabated. And you can see some of the examples of how Hindus are portrayed in mainstream media. So now let us look at the revival of the Hindu nation. So the supreme concept of Hinduism has revealed the vision for the Hindu civilization. And he describes, during the time of the Mahabharata, we Hindus had 56 deshas, 200 states, 1,700 samsthanas, 10,000 sampradayas. In all 56, we Hindus are persecuted. Now we have lost all of the 56. The last one to fall was Nepal. I am the collective voice of all the persecuted Hindus. I will revive and rebuild a Hindu nation built on the Vedagamic principles as a refuge for all practicing and aspiring Hindus, a safe haven for all persecuted Hindus. So what is Kailasa? This revival of Kailasa, the Hindu nation, is for reviving this whole life of enlightened civilization and all the great things it has to offer to the world, bringing legitimacy to all the offerings Sanatana Hindu Dharma has and sharing it with the whole world is the purpose of this Kailasa, the Hindu nation. And as Devi Parashakti is described, it is the responsibility of Hindus to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma, and it is only through the revival of Kailasa and this truly happened. Kailasa is the revival of the cosmic constitution. Kailasa is the model nation of how enlightened civilization should be living and administered. Politics, judiciary, education, economy, everything will be revived as per Paramashiva revealed in the Vedagamas, the Sanatana Hindu Dharma scripture. Hinduism represents the most persecuted, being one of the most persecuted civilizations. Hinduism is on the brink of extinction, such that the next generation may know about Hinduism only through our history books. What can we do to stand up for Hindu civilization and all that it has offered to the world? What can we do to protect Sanatana Dharma, to take the responsibility that we have committed to when we have been given this birth of Hindu birth? Today, Hinduism is a political orphan. The preservation and restoration of Hinduism's spiritual and cultural heritage is impossible without a national identity. So what can we do to save Hinduism? What can we do to protect Sanatana Hindu Dharma and all the great gifts